Okay, so we're still in 3.8 and we're going to do number 15. And it says, use the given root to find the remaining roots, then write the function in factored form. And so this one's pretty interesting because it says x is equal to the square root of 2. And something that you should know about square roots is they're kind of like eyes. Remember how earlier we talked about eyes and they travel in pairs? Well, technically, don't square roots also travel in pairs? Like, how would you get a square root answer? Well, you square rooted it, right? And whenever you take the square root, what should you also do? Right? Plus or minus, very good. So in reality, when they told you this root, right, didn't they really tell you another root? And you're like, oh yeah, that is true. So x is equal to negative root 2 is another solution. So they're making me look for 4 of them. I already have 2 of them. Right? So let me write their factors, right? So here I'd have x minus root 2. I'd have x plus root 2. And then I'm hoping for 2 more factors. And I don't know how big they are, so I'm just going to leave a little bit of space, kind of like that. Very good. Okay. No problem, hon. See you later. Okay, so one more time. Where did I get this whole other root from? Because whenever you have square roots, they always travel in pairs. Okay, so now I need to look for my other roots. I mean, my other factors and my other roots. So the first thing I'm going to do is I don't want to have to divide this by the square x minus square root of 2. I think that's a horrible idea. That's a horrible idea. So what I'm going to do instead is I'm going to multiply these out and grab that because that's probably going to be an easier, it's still called a factor, easier factor to divide by, right? So if I multiplied this out, right, you should know the pattern. You should get x squared minus, and you should get root 2 times root 2, which is just 2. So you should get x squared minus 2. Okay, x squared minus 2. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this and I'm going to divide this by this, and then it'll make my work so much easier. You literally could divide by x minus root 2, but just think about like all of the roots and the multiplying you're saving yourself from. So x to the 4th minus 6x cubed plus 3x squared plus 12x minus 10. And then over here, I have x squared minus 2. All right, so I'm dividing. So this would be x squared. And then let me multiply. X squared would be x to the 4th minus 2x squared. And I'm going to subtract, right? So that means I'm going to add everybody's opposite. So then I get negative 6x cubed plus 5x squared plus 12x minus 10. Right? And then you continue and you're like, oh, this must be minus 6x. Let's see, minus 6x. Yep. So this would be minus, oops, let me change colors so it's a little bit easier to pick out. So this would be minus 6x cubed. Negative 6x times 2 would be negative positive 12x. And then I'm going to subtract, right? So then that means I'm going to add the opposites. And so those both go away, right? So this goes away and this goes away. So now I'm left with 5x squared minus 10. Oops. 5x squared minus 10. And then you'd say, oh, what's that? And then it's obviously 5. And then when you multiply out, you get 5x squared minus 10. And then you would subtract. And then when you change your signs again, add the opposites, you notice that everybody cancels and this is a 0. as it should be, right? Like this was not a surprise. I already knew that the remainder was going to be 0. But now here's a quadratic that I could factor, right? I know how to factor this actually really quickly. It's asking me what two numbers multiply to get to 5, but add to get to -6. So I'm just going to fast forward here. So that would be x minus 5 times x minus 1. So -5 times -1 is +5. -5x's minus x is -6x's. So here's my factored form. But I just have to write the rest of my zeros and then I'm done. So the rest of my zeros are going to be 5 and 1. And those are all my zeros. So here's all my zeros. And then here's all my factors. Okay. So again, when you're doing these and they give you a factor, if you take the 2 seconds to realize, wait a second, these square roots, they travel in pairs, you already did half the work by just remembering that, right? Square roots travel in pairs because of the plus or minus, and i's travel in pairs because of, again, the plus or minus. All right, hope that makes sense.